Burnout whispers before it screams. Hi, I'm Scarlet Classic, and welcome to Classic Advice, a mental health podcast offering guidance for resilient souls, anchoring calm amid the chaos. Burnout doesn't come out of nowhere, but we need to be tuned in to ourselves and be really aware of ourselves and our own limitations if we're going to prevent burnout from happening. Burnout isn't sudden. It builds quietly over time. It shows up in small ways before it becomes overwhelming. And do you know what those small ways are for you? Because what they look like for me might not necessarily be the same thing, right? For myself, I can say that when I start to get irritable over things that would normally not make me irritable, normally not trigger me in that way, or if I just feel really tired throughout my day, if I'm not sleeping well because my mind is going a mile a minute because I have so many things on the go. It might even show up in the form of headaches for myself, or just lack of interest in doing much. I'll feel just really worn out, even if I did have a good sleep the night before. So those are just my little things that I watch out for and try to stay attuned in my own self-awareness, I guess, like have that self-awareness higher, because I have a lot on my plate between work and my hobbies and, just the day-to-day life things, that if I'm not really tuned into my self-awareness and I don't plan for my self-care, then it just doesn't happen, and then I will burn out and crash and burn, so to speak. Have you ever noticed that, you can go hard for a while and then you get a break or you hit days off and you get sick? That for me is a telltale sign that I am well on my way to burnout. I've gone a little too far because my immune system is down and low and my body is forcing a stop. It's like, no, you will rest, whether you like it or not, whether you have deadlines or not. Ignoring the signs doesn't make them go away, because your body will stop you in that form of getting a cold or an illness that you normally wouldn't. You would be able to fight off had you taken the time to rest. Mental exhaustion, that irritability that I mentioned before, or lack of motivations, they're signals. They're your body's way of saying, hey, I've got a flashing yellow light over here, and if you do not pay attention to me, I will just take things into my own hands and force you to stop. And so they're not signs of weaknesses. They're signals. And I think reframing that in that light can really help us prevent burnout in the future. Thinking about yourself, what are your warning signs for you? Because, like I said earlier, we're all a little bit different. So what are yours? And maybe that's something you could do sometime today when you're having lunch. Maybe make note of them, even write them down to help remind you to stay attuned to those signals that you have. You could be maybe more impatient or just mentally kind of checked out. You find yourself kind of zoning out or just, things that normally would get you excited, you're just kind of like meh, and you don't really care. Maybe the things that you used to enjoy start to feel like chores. I know for me, when I'm recording or doing this kind of thing, I have my own deadlines that I created for myself because no one is forcing me to be here. But it's important to me to show up here. And not just for myself, but for you guys too, that you can count on me to be here. But I can tell when I'm starting to approach that burnout that my kind of drive or excitement to edit or do all the behind the scenes. I find recording normally always very fun, but the behind the scenes things can sometimes take a long time. And if my internet isn't cooperating or because I do my artwork with AI, so sometimes that internet connection is not the best, especially right now as I'm working out of town, that it gets frustrating. And I can tell that I need to just take a break and step away before I get too frustrated. This self-awareness is like our first line of defense against burnout. We can't prevent what we refuse to recognize. Just like I mentioned the other day, we can't fix problems that we won't admit that we have. Admitting that we are, have XYZ issue, like for me when I had depression, me recognizing the fact that I had depression, or me recognizing the fact that I had CPTSD, just it was the first step for me to really tackle the issue and really tackle the problem and confront it, and so that I can move on. Rest is something that I think we should try to think of as a strategy, not a reward system. So if I said, well, it's not something that I earn. One of the things that I do is, I'll couple things, like I'll say to myself, okay, well, if I get 2 episodes recorded, I'll give myself the rest of the evening to, read or watch my show or do whatever, right? That's like me, self-care, rest time. But it's not like I have to earn self-care. We shouldn't have to earn our own self-care. It should be a given. It should be something that we plan and deliberately put in our day, so that we don't hit burnout. And what we can handle can change over time, which I don't know if you've ever really thought about that. So about a year and a half ago, I switched from, a year and a half. So about a year and a half ago, I switched from white collar to blue collar. And when I first switched over to blue collar, it was like twice the amount of hours that I was used to. So when I started, at the end of the day, I was just like wiped. And my days off, I was really quite tired. Now I'm not. I can go through the whole day and I'm tired at the end of the day, don't get me wrong. But I also, do other things. Like I can handle it a lot better. I'm not nearly as tired as I was when I first started working blue collar. So what we can handle, our capacity can grow if we really work at it and give ourselves time to get accustomed to the new workload or whatever it is that we put on our plate. Like I've mentioned many times, like when I first started this podcast, if I had started out daily doing, I try to hit, 10 to 20-ish minutes, as long as, if I run out of things to say, then I end it, right? But it's kind of that sweet spot that that I try to hit, that I can go deep enough into a topic without boring you guys. So if I had done that right from the get-go, oh man, I would have quit this a long time ago, because my capacity for recording, for editing, for doing all the background things, I would not have been able to handle it. Hands down. I know that. But now that I've got, the practice in, that I've got all these repetitions in, my capacity has grown, and I can handle a little bit more in regards to, this specific thing. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Like if you're going too hard too fast, then that can put us into burnout as well, because we're trying to do too much. We have too much on our plate. And then if we don't recognize these warning signs for burnout, then we can hit it, and it'll stop us. So just that self-awareness and that frame of mind that we don't need to earn our self-care time. That is something that is part of, that is something that should be put in as our strategy and how to come back stronger. Because if all we do is work and no play, it gets very tiring. Taking breaks before we're desperate for them will change everything. And rest is so productive, and it protects our mental health. It protects us from hitting that emergency stop button that our body will force on us if we're not careful. This whole idea of stop the work before it stops you. Because if we don't pause, our body and mind will force us to. Like I said earlier, you ever been so excited for holidays and your days off come and then you get sick? That's your body's way of telling you that you were going way too hard and you were not putting enough rest into your schedule. Burnout will slow you down way more than rest ever will. And I think that's something that if we keep in mind, then it can really help us out in recognizing the fact that, if I take this rest time for me, I'll be able to be way more productive in my work later, because I've taken that self-care time. I've taken that me time. And I found for myself too that because we might rest for an hour or whatever it may be, but if we get sick because we push ourselves too far, well, how long does it take you to get better from that? Sometimes it's a couple of days before you're feeling, all better. If you get just a cold or something, like you're stuffed up and headaches and you're blowing your nose every 5 minutes, and not to say that you're never going to get colds if you do everything you can to prevent burnout. That's just part of life. But choosing to stop can actually be choosing our longevity as well. Being really strict with our bedtime, because rest is important. I was reading somewhere the other day that, when we sleep, that's when our brain gets flushed out of toxins. So if we don't prioritize our sleep, if we don't prioritize our bedtime routine, then those toxins that are in our brain don't have that chance to be flushed out. And that's all part of scheduling in rest, real rest by sleep, not just self-care time. pushing through, I think sometimes, especially in the Western society, depending on where you're listening from, but particularly where I'm from in the West here, you know, you'll talk to a friend or you talk to a buddy and be like, hey, how you doing? And it's like a flex. It's like a thing to be proud of if you respond to say that you're busy. And I think we need to change that, because it shouldn't be a flex to boast about how busy you are. Look at me, I'm so busy, and like, I don't know, I don't think that's anything to be, I mean, it's good to be like not lazy, but to boast about how busy you are, I think for me, like it should be something that we're proud of, to be able to stop and unwind. Be like, yeah, like I was proud of myself because, this week I really prioritized my self-care and rest, and I feel amazing now. If you do one thing this week and you prioritize your self-care and your rest, make mental note of how you feel after that. Because like yesterday, I got off work a little bit earlier than normal, and I could have done more work on here, on my podcast and whatever. But I deliberately chose to take an hour, and I know I mentioned this yesterday, so I apologize if it's twice, but I was proud of myself for taking that time to just have some me time, have some downtime, and not feel bad about it after. Be like, no, this is important. This is me taking some time for me. Because as someone who works blue collar and works 12-hour days, 11 days in a row with 3 days off on the weekends and a commute on top of that, it's finding that balance and deliberately putting that self-care rest time is absolutely critical for me, or I would have crashed a long time ago. That's why I really emphasize how important it is to make your bedtime routine so strict, and prioritizing that you time. If you feel like you're feeling off lately, then take this episode as your sign that you don't need to wait until you feel completely drained. The dishes aren't going anywhere. The dirt on the floor of your house is not going anywhere. The laundry is not going anywhere. Some things can wait. Take a break this week. Say no to some things that, really don't absolutely have to be done. If you are running yourself ragged, step back where you can. Maybe take a look at your schedule and tweak it and refine it so that you can be more productive with your time. You're allowed to protect your energy before your energy is completely gone. You don't have to earn your rest, but you will have to protect it. You will have to plan for it and schedule it in and make it a priority so that you stop before your work stops you. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Advice, guidance for resilient souls. May you stay anchored in what steadies you, rise resilient through what challenges you, and carry calm into whatever comes next. Take care. Love you. Bye.